when he came back into this country, if sometime he would come and he would share a couple of his mom's poems that have twisted my heart. And he said he would do that. And so we had organized for Don Perrin to sing the Cypress Hills, and I'd asked Scotty if he would do his mom's The Old Home Place, and what's the other one, Scott?
The Hillside Branch.
The Hillside Branch. Our ranchers and our farmers are getting ready to feed us next year. And they're working on it right now. They're very important to our hearts. And thank you, Scott, for agreeing to do that.
No, I got on the back of me. Okay.
That'll work.
Got my frills in there. Got your frills in there?
Just, I'll hold it. How's that?
Walk around.
There you go.
Okay. Can we make that thing go up?
Tell me when.
Yeah, he's from a different era.
Yeah, there.
Okay.
Got one of these too. And the drumstick. So, like,
Claire.
howdy. Yeah, me too. I see some people up there that I know. So we're gonna do the Old Home Place and then the Hillside Ranch. Both poems written by my mother, who was a Leslie. She wrote this poem, The Old Home Place, for her folks. After she was married, moved over the hill to where the Reesor outfit is located. She wrote this to express her appreciation for her childhood home. There are memories of my childhood that time will not erase, of good times and of bad times too, back on the old home place. It lies hidden in a valley in the dear old Cypress Hills. The Indians likely camped there to escape the winter's chills. The hills and the trees surround it, they break the fury of the wind. They must have camped there often, while their buffalo they skinned. There are many Indian cellars, teepee rings, and heads of arrows to be found along the 6 Mile Creek by the crossings and the narrows. I've tramped along the creek banks and I've waded in the summer. I've listened to the flicker call or sat and watched the drummer. I love the old home place down there where I spent my childhood years. There one could feel so close to God and tell him all their hopes and fears. In those carefree days of childhood, the folks didn't have much money and both of them worked awfully hard. But you know, sort of funny. We had more than lots of other kids. Love, time, and peace were ours. There was space to grow in, and the birds and trees and flowers. We also had the home we loved, and there's not one of the 7 who doesn't feel way down inside that it was pretty close to heaven. I could sit beside the rushing spring in warm and sunny weather and watch the thirsty horses drink with their smell of sweat and leather. I could close my eyes and see it all. The log house in the coulee, the corrals, the barn, the water trough. I will tell you folks quite truly, though all may go our separate ways as we compete in life's long race, we may never find the peace we had back on the old home place. There are memories of my childhood that time will not erase, of good times and of bad times too, back on the old home place. So that make anybody go drifting back down the trail to their childhood stamping grounds?
Yeah.
That's what that's all about. Thank you. The Hillside Ranch, she wrote this for Dad's folks. I believe it was the celebration of their 50th anniversary. They were living in Medicine Hat at the time, and they came back out and celebrated with friends and neighbors. The Hillside Ranch. There's a ranch house on a hillside where they lived for many years, where they worked and raised a family and knew their dreams, their hopes, their fears. Where they rose early in the morning, oft in the dawn's gray light, and planned and toiled and sweated through each day till it was night. Memories of all the things they did through the good years and the bad, how they faced the long cold winters, stuck it out, and were glad. For spring always came, and with it came new life and springtime joys, new leaves, new grass, new calves and colts, and through the years, the boys. Memories that go way back in years, of which great tales can be told, of blizzards sweeping o'er the hills, of cattle dying in the cold. When there was no feed and the icy wind chilled them and drove them on to shelter in brush or coulee, or lie dead in the frozen dawn. Memories of men who toiled for hours to care for the poor dumb critters. It could break their backs as well as their hearts. It was sure no life for quitters. For the elements are often harsh in these old cypress hills, and a cattleman cares for his stock, though he endures heat, pain, or chills. Memories of roundups and brandings, trailing cattle for miles in the cold, often for a price next to nothing when taken to market and sold. Memories of breaking wild horses. It was all part of ranch work then. Bucking broncs and four-horse teams separated the boys from the men. Memories that bring a smile to your lips, some that call forth a real belly laugh. The wonders of spring on the prairie, like the sight of a newborn calf. Oh, things could be so grand and peaceful as you worked in the sun or the rain, made you feel so good inside, you forgot all the winter's pain. Memories of caring for family and home, and women's work was never done in sickness or health or grieving or the death of an infant son. Memories of cooking and baking bread in the old black cook stove's heat, of branding crews and haying crews, so weary, most asleep on your feet. Memories of gardens planted and tended in those years that it didn't rain. You watched them dry and wilting, burn like the hay and the grain. When feed was scarce and prices low, there wasn't a nickel to spare, but you managed somehow to keep going, and you always ate 3 square. Memories of visiting neighbors, trips to town with buggy and team. Being rich enough to own a car for years was just a dream. Memories of friends and loved ones, good times that were fun for all. Of picnics, stampedes, and camping, and of dances you can recall. Memories of schooling and teachers, of boys joining the army to fight, of war far over the ocean. This somehow didn't seem right, but they kept the home place going and worked just as hard as before till they turned it over to their sons at the ending of the war. I've heard that as you grow older, good memories blot out the bad, and I'm wondering if this is so. Would you, dear mother and dad, turn back the pages of your lives, forget the sorrow and pain, come back to the ranch on the hillside, and do it all over again? There's a memory or two in that pile of words, isn't there? So, speaking of memories and history, we've all got some that all should be written down and recorded for progeny and others to learn from and enjoy. His story, her story, whatever the case may be. I'm done now.
Thanks.
And we're all going to go and find ourselves in tomorrow, where there are endless possibilities.
Thanks so much, Scott. Really appreciate that. Thank you for reminding us. All